Okay, don't click off this video. I need your opinions in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts and stuff about it. I've been having a chat with Pete, and it seems as though there is a big problem within gaming, especially as of late. Because some of you will know this from my Outriders stuff. I spend a lot of time looking at Steam charts, and I see how games are performing in terms of concurrent players. So I've gone and had a look, and bearing in mind I'm recording this on a Saturday, and it's maybe a couple of hours after peak time. So for those of you unaware, Saturday, around 9 PM my time, would be the highest amount of players in a game over the weekend. And you also have to think about the weekend being the best time for anyone in the world to play games. Because a lot of people out there have their 9 to 5s Monday through Friday, and they work during the week. There's obviously people out there that work the weekends too, but the busiest work time is Monday to Friday. So on Saturday, for a game to perform bad, means that something's going wrong. And I'm not going to put these images up on screen, however I am looking at them. You can go check Steam charts yourself. I've just got gameplay in the background to make this video a lot easier, because it's more about the opinions and the comments than it is showing what I'm talking about. So for Hood, Outlaws and Legends, the game peaked all time at 9,000 players roughly. Its 24-hour peak, and this is on a Saturday at peak times, it's had 129 players. So that game on Steam, like console isn't included in this at all. There's no Stadia, no mobile or anything like that. It's purely Steam, not even Epic Games. This is just Steam on PC, but this is where a lot of players go to play their games. Steam has been around for a long time. So Hood has 129 players in the last 24 hours. When I say concurrent, that means people playing at exactly the same time. So Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, there has been 820 players in the last 24 hours. Then we move on to Operation Tango, nowhere near as big a game, but it's peaked at 256 players in the last 24 hours. Then we have Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, and we have a 24-hour peak of 1,260 players. Then we have Biomutant, and that 24-hour peak is 666. So they haven't even got close to 700 concurrent players at peak times on a Saturday. The thing that gets you thinking about that is Biomutant released an update that put your character level from 50 up to 100. They doubled your level, they made you more powerful, but they still can't break a good amount of players. Outriders is struggling to hit like 3.5, 4K players, and that is including at peak times. So I messaged Pete, we've had a little chat about it, and I sent him the images. He said he just doesn't get it why people aren't playing anything or watching vids on anything at all. So I had a look, and Red Dead Online, the standalone version of it, has around the same play as Outriders does. But you have to bear in mind with this, Outriders released on April 1st of 2021. Red Dead Redemption 2 released at the end of, I think it was the 26th of October, let me double check. Yeah, the 26th of October 2018. So that game is coming up to being 3 years old. And even though the standalone is a lot more modern, they didn't release it straight away, it's still got a similar amount of players to Outriders. But then you look at Red Dead Redemption 2 itself on Steam, and it's got like 3 to 4 times the amount of players that Outriders has. And then if you have a look at Borderlands 3, in the last 24 hours, Borderlands 3 has peaked at 12,100 players. If you look at the Battle Royales and you start going into the free-to-plays and you go to things like Destiny 2, you're going to see much higher numbers. But the whole point of it is the modern generation, the newest generation of gaming, is going downhill very fast. And I don't think there's a way for it to pick up, because carrying on talking to Pete, I said people are still playing games, just not the new stuff. And I think that's the way gaming is going. People aren't watching a lot of the new stuff either, unless it's from big YouTubers, because all the games are just shit. And then Pete said the new stuff just doesn't have the same depth or replayability in the games at all. And obviously the older games have had much more polish in, they've got a lot more content, they're like full-on games. They've had time to go through their updates and everything, get the games polished and in a good state to play. So I said that definitely could be it. Look at Outriders with 15 endgame missions. Dark Alliance only has 20 levels per character and has got 3 dungeons. Biomutant has a load of like puzzle side quests that offer nothing besides exploration and a little bit of XP. The depth definitely isn't there, and neither is the replayability. Red Dead, on the other hand, has like a 60-hour story, then it's got an open world to explore where you can go get your 100 100%. Then you jump into online, you've got all the collectibles, you've got the different roles and stuff, the bounty hunter, you've got different game modes and stuff, you've got PvP, you've got hunting, there's a lot to do in that game. Borderlands has got all of its bonus content and stuff that it's released. And even though it's all added over time, the older games launched with way more content. A lot of the games that are upcoming, a lot of the games that have recently released just don't have a lot of content for players to play. There's a game coming up very soon. It releases in early access if you buy a Founders Pack on July 14th, and that is called Space Punks. It's a game I'll be trying. It's like a looter shooter. I think people said Borderlands mixed with Diablo. It's got the isometric action of Diablo, and it's got the Borderlands sort of art style and stuff to it. But that releases on July 14th. It's going to be early access. There's not going to be a huge amount of content at launch. Then the game's going into open beta towards the end of the year, and then they're going to release it into early access on consoles and stuff at some point in 2022, possibly go into full release some point in that year as well. But then, for the rest of July, the only things that have been on my radar that are coming out is a game called Tribes of Midgard, which will cost £15 for the standard edition on Steam. And then there's a game that's also coming out on Game Pass as well as you being able to buy it. I'm not sure on the price of actually purchasing it. But even through Game Pass, both Tribes of Midgard and The Ascent are games that are being made for the very first time from their development studios. The devs have never made another game ever in their lifespan. So that's why I think the new generation of gaming is going downhill and it's going to continue more and more each year. Because the older stuff just holds your attention better. You typically get big sales and discounts and stuff. And not only that, there's just way more content to actually play. There's a lot more to do. And then even if you look at Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, you pay £35, you get a 5-hour game depending on how you play it. But typically it's probably about 5-6 hours or something like that. And the game has more skins releasing than anything else. But there's no point replaying the stuff. Once you've done a mission, what is the point of going back and doing it again? The only thing you're going to have is a different gameplay experience if you change the difficulty, use a different weapon. That's not fun. It is not entertaining for the player. And then if you look at The Division 2, that's a 2.5-year-old game that's pretty much been abandoned. When I say abandoned, they're not actively working on the game right now. They say that they're working on a new game mode, but we haven't heard anything about it, and that's supposed to release towards the end of this year. You would think we would get at least a little teaser trailer by now, or just even word that it's still going well. But we've not heard a single thing about it. There's no maintenance, there's no updates for the game. The only thing they've done is recycle their seasons. So technically, in a way, you can see that as being abandoned. Yet when I upload The Division 2, even if I'm just sitting there playing Legendary, even if I'm just responding to backup calls for other players to help them out, I'm getting more views on my Division 2 stuff than I am on some, if not a lot of my Outriders stuff, and Outriders is a much newer release. There's also been a lot of issues, and some people might say, yeah, but you've covered a lot of Div 2, people are going to come back and watch you for it. But still, I've covered a lot of Outriders as well. I'm over 150 videos into Outriders. And yet people would just rather watch The Division 2. I see more people in my Discord server playing The Division 2. There's a lot of talk about Outriders, but when Outriders is mentioned, it's always negative, because the game is just so bad. There's a lot of replayability in The Division 2. I've put 1,800 hours into that game. I'm not even close in Outriders, and a lot of the time I can't even be bothered to load up the game and play it, just because of how bad the matchmaking is. If you look at Destiny 2, yeah, it's free to play, you've got to buy the seasons and stuff or whatever, but I'm going to say it's got 30 to 50,000 concurrent players, maybe on a good day or something. I'll quickly go and check now exactly how many people are playing. Bear in mind this is just on Steam. Destiny 2 has, way more. 24-hour peak, 77,000 players. And that's for a game that's years and years old. So Pete then said it all just boils down to greed from the developers, because the less they have to put in for that £50 game, £60 game or whatever, the quicker they can get on to making the next one, or make a small paid DLC for it. So you look at things like Outriders, they released 15 endgame missions, absolutely no differences in the legendary loot and stuff, all of your attributes like the max health, the close range weapon damage and stuff, they all have exactly the same percentages. There was a lot of lazy work put into Outriders. All they did was Like, I mean, you've had an inventory wipe that lasted like a month. You've had damage mitigation issues. There was 4 days at the launch of servers not even working. So you've had a lot of issues with Outriders. Biomutant, a lot of people said the world was just big and empty and it was boring. It's because developers seem to be making these half-assed games that come out, and yeah, they've got content that'll last a little while, but they have no replayability, they have no depth to them. You're going to sit there and play the game maybe even for a few hundred hours, but that is it after. There is nothing else to do. And all the developers simply do is they release the game, like Outriders. The developers are working on 2 other games set to release within the next 2 or 3 years. So they released Outriders, grabbed the money from Xbox paying them for it being on Game Pass, paid all this people paying £60 for it. They grabbed all that money, did a couple of updates to keep players interested when they possibly can, and then they've moved on. They're working on other stuff. With Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, it took them like a week and a half to release the first update, and it addressed absolutely nothing that the community was moaning about. It then took them like almost a full week after the update for them to say, oh, we're going to work on the AI, but absolutely no description as to what they're going to do. And they always said, and developers do typically always say, we're going to listen to the feedback from the community and take the game how the community want it. Then they never bother. So at that point, I told Pete I'm going to do a video, talk to you guys about it, see what you think, get your thoughts and opinions and stuff. And I think a lot of you are going to agree that the new generation of gaming is just bad. And I managed to further prove my point about the older stuff doing better, because I uploaded a video. I have a feeling Ubisoft will cancel the new Division 2 game mode, and after 33 minutes out of my last 10 uploads, in terms of views, that was sitting in 2nd place. And I've done Outriders within the last 10 uploads, so it goes to show that the newer stuff people really are not interested in. I mean, for Borderlands 3 to have more players in the last 24 hours than Hood, Dark Alliance, Operation Tango, Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, Biomutant, and Outriders all together, it just goes to show that something is wrong, and the only thing that I can figure out would be the fact that there's no point playing these new games. There's nothing to do in these new games. With Hood, you just go into a PvP match, you steal a chest, that's it. Dark Alliance, you've got a lot of bugs to face, you've got 20 levels with your character, a set amount of missions, 3 dungeons, you're done. Operation Tango, the game didn't even work in co-op when it first released, is a much, much smaller game than these other ones. But you just go in, you complete a short story, like playing in co-op, and then you're done with the game. Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, you go in, you do your missions, you do all your recon, you take down your targets and stuff, you're done with the game. Biomutant, you do the side quests, you find a lot of them aren't rewarding, then you go and do the story, you might reach level 100, nothing else to do. Outriders, you do the story, you get to the expeditions, you grind up to tier 15, then you're doing the same stuff you've done already, so there's no point in doing it. With a game like Borderlands 3, you have a lot of different stuff to do. With Red Dead Online, you have a lot of different stuff to do. Even with the Division 2, once you've gone on, you've done the story, you've gone through all the world tiers, you then buy the DLC, you go through Warlords, you play through that story, you get yourself from level 30 to 40, then after 40 you've got a Shade Watch to grind, you've got the Summit, you've got legendary missions now, well, like the Strongholds are legendary, you've got a different, like completely different build to grind for, or several builds if you want to. There's a lot of stuff to do. These new games are releasing with barely any content, they're charging stupid prices for games that are releasing broken, and they're just not enough to hold a gamer's attention. And that's nothing to do with gamers being too demanding, that's the games just not being anywhere near as good as they should be. There's probably a million different examples I could show you, but I thought I'd base it on new games versus old games, and how the new generation of gaming just seems as though it sucks. Especially, as I said, July, we've got a Red Dead update, we've got Space Punks, which is early access, then we've got 2 games that are development studios' first ever releases. And there are companies out there that have made fantastic games in the past, like CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3, that then go on to make games like Cyberpunk, and with how bad that one is, it's going to be very hard for a gamer to put their trust into a development team that's making their first ever game. But that's going to do it for this one, before it ends up a half-an-hour video. Let me know your thoughts and stuff in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed it.